Hi guys, welcome back to the Avoiding Broke podcast with me, Leanne.
And me, Jermaine.
So today we are going to be talking about cash flow within your property business. Now for us as landlords, cash flow is key.
Absolutely.
We all know that. But it's come under a bit of pressure recently given that renters are kind of struggling to pay rent. So what we want to talk about in this podcast is ways to minimise your disruption in your cash flow.
I think that's absolutely superb. And, cash flow risk is the one thing that I think about more than anything personally. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, me too.
So let's go.
Okay, let's get started. I think one of the key things that's going to impact your cash flow is your level of rent. You don't want to price yourself out of the market. So actually for me, I would rather have my rent, say, take £50 off the rent and make sure that I get tenants in and they pay their rent and they stay.
Yeah, so I think that's right. The level of your rent and the ability to kind of use rent as a lever that you kind of tweak in order to generate that extra demand, which in turn helps fueling that cash flow, I think is absolutely right. And it's a brilliant strategy, guys, where you've got that market level rent. Just to underprice, right? Yeah. Aggressive pricing strategies is really important. And we see this in other businesses as well, right?
Yeah, and I think one of the key things that we should remember is that even if you do, say, price just below the market, that is better than having, say, a month with no rent.
Yeah, of course.
Most definitely. So, yeah, and there are other key things I think you can do about like making sure that payment dates work for your tenants and things like that, just so that actually it works for them as well as you.
Yeah, look, I think that's a really good point, right? So, guys, it's worth us just taking kind of a mini step back and realising when we think about cash flow, like rent is clearly a fundamental component. And as Leanne is already saying here, there are a few different ways we can kind of tweak what's happening with the rent to make sure we protect ourselves and reduce our risk a little bit. So one is about the rent levels, absolutely. One is about the rent timing. Yeah. So you can think about changing payment dates. What else can we do in terms of really messing around with rent?
Maybe giving confidence to your tenants that the rent won't go up in the next year or something like that.
Definitely. So you can fix your rent levels. One really interesting tactic at the minute is where you see some landlords choose to actually give rent reductions in exchange for prepayment. So for example, if your rent is normally charged at $1,000, you say to your tenants, look guys, if you can prepay for the next, say, 12 months, we'll basically do that at $800 for you, or $850. So you manage to get money in your pocket now. Your tenant gets a huge benefit by getting a great rent discount. And actually, it can work out much better for both parties. I think that's a really smart one.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And it seems like the things that we're covering here are things that you can do when you're looking for a tenant in terms of setting your rent level, but then also when you have tenants, actually the flexibility that you can show to actually keep them in your property and paying.
Definitely, and I think the theme about flexibility when it comes to cash flow is really important, right? Because sometimes what happens is we will sign these short-term tenancies. They usually last about 12 months, and then you kind of think that what you've got on paper really is the be-all and end-all, but it's just not. Actually, you need to be always reassessing, because at any point your tenants could look and say they can't afford to pay rent, and then all of a sudden you need to come up with different strategies to make sure you can manage that property, because you can't evict anybody right now because there are some very big tenant protection rules in place. Obviously, you want to help your tenants as best you can, so you've got to get really creative, and the best way to start doing it is to think about creative ideas before there's a problem. Yeah. That's the best way, always.
Oh. Most definitely. And I think another thing that we're talking about here that can help landlords is once you have a tenant in place, actually keeping them there is key, I think, as well, because it actually costs money when you have tenants coming in and out for you. So keeping your tenants kind of happy and in place is great for both parties. Yeah. And I think the things that we've been talking about here about that flexibility can really help with that.
I agree with that in mostly. The only bit I'd caveat is keeping good tenants in place is key, right? Because if they're giving you a bit of a headache, then I don't know, that's a different story.
That was a good qualification.
Just to be very, very clear on my view on it. But look, I think there's no doubting what you've said, right? In that, guys, we need to, we're running businesses, right? So we need to be thinking really holistically about the ways in which we incur different costs and the way in which we manage our income. And so we've just kind of covered a couple of different parts of it. Everything that we can do in terms of rent are smart ways that we can look about taking care of our income. But also keeping tenants in place, reducing that disruption, reducing having to change things up is really good ways of looking after your cost line. So it really comes down to accounting again, and these are really smart ways of making sure you kind of look after that cash flow.
Most definitely. And one of the things that we as landlords should also think about is not only the rent level, but other things that you can do within your property actually to make sure that tenants firstly want to live there and also want to stay there.
Yes.
So you protect your cash flow. And here I'm thinking about stuff like furniture that you can include, or those kind of little sweeteners that you can put in the deal to try and attract tenants and actually make it a nice place where they want to stay.
Yeah, it's a really great idea. And look, I guess, guys, one thing that we can all kind of probably identify with is something like Amazon Prime, where you get Amazon Prime maybe primarily for your deliveries, but when Amazon offer you Prime TV at like no cost, all of a sudden it looks amazing. Yeah, I'm very happy with it.
Me too.
And I think property is like a very similar kind of like case. Yes. If you've got a dishwasher in the property, which a lot of unfurnished lets don't necessarily come with, then that's a fantastic sweetener to be able to offer. Or if you've got some furniture that you may have in storage, which you may be able to offer for free or a reduced cost, and again to be included, it's a lovely little sweetener.
Most definitely. And one of the things that we may want to think about as well is this kind of move to working from home. So if there's a nice space within one of your properties where you can even set up a desk and say that there is this kind of home working area as well, that can be a big selling point.
Yeah, I think always have the option. So I mean, my preference would be never set anything up beforehand, but always have it in your back pocket. That's the kind of move you can make. So to your point, to ask those questions about if they need a desk, if you do have it available, I think is a really big plus. Guys, it's all about us thinking more creatively about what the needs of our tenants may be, and if we've got different resources again in storage and available, how can we make those available to make our property and our offer more attractive? And just think Amazon Prime. If you're ever in any doubt, think Amazon Prime. You might sign up for it for next day delivery, but you might keep it because you like the music or because you like the movies. So you need sweetness to keep people in the deal.
Yeah. And I guess highlight the positive things around the property as well. For example, if there's a garden or, like you say, some extra storage space, just kind of think about the things that mean something to people within their houses. And if that is available, like you said, then highlighting those things.
Yeah, and I mean, look, it may not be stuff that you can do much about. So, but think creatively. So, for example, I mean, look, right, if you've got you said Leanne mentioned storage space. If you've got a loft that is unboarded, you may want to pay for a carpenter or a handyman to come and board that loft space out to all of a sudden offer your tenants an extra 20% storage space.
Yeah.
That could actually be huge. It may be a fairly small cost for you. It's completely tax deductible, obviously, all the materials and the labour. And actually, that could be a massive selling point. Or if you've got a garden that's not brilliantly kept, you may want to actually just bring somebody in to kind of level the grass out, because now that people are working from home more, the garden's a big selling point. If you've got a beautifully presented garden with that extra space and you put up a new shed and you kind of give people those options, all of a sudden, I think you've got a big advantage in the deal.
Oh, I really think you do as well. And you kind of reminded me of another thing that we should think about, and advertising, and how important it is actually to get your advertising right in the beginning.
Sure.
Because that can obviously help you get people into your property. So when they're looking at lots of properties all at the same time, you want to stand out. You want people to come and have a look at your property. And one of the ways that you can do that, I think, is by highlighting these features within your adverts that you've spoken about, Jermaine.
Yeah.
But also kind of where you advertise and the different opportunities you have in different places. And here I'm thinking about, you've got like your Rightmoves and your Zooplas, but also like notice boards can be incredibly useful, because you can put information in there that you may not be able to put in, say, the more Rightmove and Zoopla things that are more structured.
Okay, so I think I think it's a really interesting one actually, because even though we've got this whole situation where we're in lockdown and you've got like a lot of high streets not getting traffic, your local community shops, they do still actually have a very regular flow of people.
Yes.
And I think that's typically where you're going to see these kind of notice boards. So, I'm guessing what you're going at here is less about kind of libraries, but more like local convenience stores where they're going to have like just notices kind of plastered up. If somebody goes to the post office, they may have a quick look and they may see something. People in local areas who are out walking, they will pop in looking for accommodation. It's a natural thing. Look, it's a good idea. It's very cheap to advertise. It's a few pounds or dollars from what I've seen for a few weeks. We've done it before, and we basically got a property let within a few hours. Yeah, in fact, we got it done within about 8 hours, I think.
Yep.
I think we advertised it in the late morning, and we were writing up contracts by the very early evening, I think.
Yeah. I think so, because I think it's a natural place where you go and look at these things, but I'm also thinking about virtual notice boards as well.
Okay.
So I know, particularly at my work, we've got a notice board, and people advertise properties on there. If they know like a friend's moving out or something like that, then they may advertise on there.
Yeah.
Because it may not be the people at work that are looking for something, but you may know people that are looking for property. So it's a good way to kind of spread the word.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, guys, look, the key thing, because I think we shouldn't. You don't over-index on thinking about advertising, but I think what you have to think about is your speed to market. Yeah. Right? If you want to start looking after your cash flow in a really smart way, you've got to get yourself moving fast. And in order to do that, it's not just about doing like a one-trick pony kind of job, so you only go to Rightmove. You've got to look at different places that get attention, and you've got to put yourself in those places. And it doesn't matter where you go, how you advertise it. I don't think anybody really cares, frankly. And so, guys, this ability to get your conversion and to translate the interest translate the attention rather from potential renters into conversion is what ultimately makes a difference. It's what's ultimately going to help you get your rent start moving through, get that cash flowing. That's key. Got to be quick.
Yeah, completely agree, and I think it's something that we should all be thinking about as landlords. I just wonder whether this was a good place to just kind of summarise what we've gone through. So basically, there are some things that you can do at the beginning. In terms of your rent level, your ways that you advertise, the features of your property that you highlight, and also thinking kind of creatively about how you can offer your tenants more within your property. And here I'm thinking about the access to the storage and the desk space and things like that you can offer. And then also when your tenant's in your property, then the things that you can do about being kind of flexible with certain things that help actually keep your tenant in place and your cash flow coming in. Like Jermaine said, if they're good tenants,
definitely,
then you want to keep them in place. Then there are things that you can do around payment dates or flexibility in terms of paying up front and getting a discount and those kind of things that we've spoken about in this podcast.
Yeah.
So I think that's how I would summarize things you can do to get your property rented in the first place, but then also those things that you can do while they're in.
That's it. Absolutely. Definitely agree.
Okay. So it sounds like a beautiful place to leave it.
Why not?
While we're in agreement, which rarely happens. So
100%. But guys, the cash flow is the number one thing that you've got to be working on, right? And you've got to be assessing your risk. Everything that we do here is about how we invest and how we manage the risks that we're going to be exposed to. You've got to recognise the importance of cash flow, because that is always what keeps you in the game. Cash flow is what lets you continue to pay for the asset, continue to build your wealth over time, right? And so these points that we're talking about, they're very anchored around being versatile, about thinking creatively, about understanding your income well, understanding expenses well, understanding human behavior, attention, psychology. So, and overall thinking about risk. So you can see it's not just a case of drop your money in and that's it, away you go. The constant education you need and the constant commitment to learning is very important to being successful in the long term.
I completely agree. And guys, if you have any comments on anything that we've said, then just drop us a note below. Or if there's anything else that you want us to cover, then do just let us know.
Yep, find us everywhere at Avoiding Broke. And as ever, guys, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the bell so you get notifications. And look forward to talking to you next week.
Yeah, you have a good week and we'll definitely see you soon.
All right, take care, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.